Very good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christine Romberg, and on behalf of the Hilti Foundation, I would like to welcome you to this Lunch and Learn. It's every year a unique opportunity to have Franck Goddio with us when we get his reports, his live reports about the previous year. And every year we think, well, this year has been perfect, and there will be no chance to be more interesting, more new discoveries. We know there is a lot still to excavate in all over Egypt, but what Franck has been able to achieve over the past years, especially also by improving the technology on, is really remarkable. And this morning we could simply not believe what he showed us and what he is ready to share with you, although it has not yet been published, and you should take this as a real privilege. We are going to have the presentation by Franck now. We are working together with the foundation almost since 30 years. So it has been an important time, but I'm convinced there will be a lot to come. We have the presentation, and then you will have the chance also to ask questions, of course. And I also welcome our colleagues who are with us online, and even they will be able to ask and go still deeper into the topic. And there is one last question from my side. Please, during the performance, try to avoid this because it's really disturbing. Enjoy your lunch, maybe now or later, but please put the bags down because they really make a lot of noise. Franck, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to make a presentation of the result of some years of teamwork in Alexandria, Egypt, on a specific monument that we discovered long ago underwater in the port of Alexandria, and which happened to be, we can now identify it as the last temple of the Queen Cleopatra. And that monument has a beautiful history, and that history came to us little by little, years after years, thanks to the discovery made and the work made with the team supported by the ET Foundation. We are here in Alexandria, and this is the modern city all around, and everything you see above it is now water. Nothing can be seen. This is a relief of the bottom, which is under the water, and which is like a ghost of the relief of what we call the bathymetry, the relief of the past. And you can see that there was a lot of things in that area, which is a large area because between here and here is 3.5 kilometers, and from here to here 1.7 kilometers. So it's a large area which is our area of excavation. Now we have the contour of what was called the Portus Magnus in the antiquity. It was the biggest port in the antiquity, which has been described by ancient authors many, many times, and which is now coming to light with the work we are doing in Alexandria since 1996. We started the work there. You can see that in what is called the Portus Magnus, there is different port, peninsula, a central port there, and all that part was called the royal quarters. It was the part where the kings lived, the pharaoh of the last dynasty of Egypt. It's the Greek dynasty of Egypt, of the pharaoh, started in the late 4th century BCE and ended with a Cleopatra queen committing suicide in 31 BCE. And you can see that there is one island there. And it is on that island that we discover here a very important building Before we had discovered here the foundation of a palace, and there we found the foundation, more than the foundation, a totally destroyed monument, which happened to be a temple, a sanctuary. You can see that that sanctuary has been here struck, and you see here some vestiges of landslides, which has been caused by an earthquake. We performed this year excavation, and this will be the result of this year work, excavation on the north and on the south of this destroyed monument that you can see here. First, there is a layer of modern sand with shells, things like that, 80 centimeters deep. And then under that layer, you have the layer of the destruction of the sanctuary. And it happens that the sanctuary has been struck by an earthquake, and part of it slid into the port. And this is where it was a kind of fantastic event for us, because it enabled us to recover artifacts which could not be recovered at the time of the destruction of the temple, because it was in the bottom of a port. We found this year beautiful artifacts, such those oil lamps, sometimes intact. It's a kind of a time capsule. Everything was destroyed in a matter of a second, and it was sealed by the sediment and forgotten until we discovered it. This is part of the 50 oil lamps that we discovered during that mission, and some of them are absolutely intact and extremely rare. It's extremely rare to find intact artifact like that in an excavation on land, and underwater. It's a kind of a unique event. We even found during that excavation what might be the biggest oil lamp ever done in ceramic in the antiquity, nearly 35 centimeters wide and containing 2 to 3 liters of oil. It's something very strange. Never such an oil lamp has ever been discovered. What is very strange is that every year brings new element. We are working for years and years on that destruction level. And under that destruction level was a layer, a thick layer without anything. And from years and years, of course, we decided to stop the excavation and never go deep, deep, deep where there is nothing, of course, because you reach the geological layers. But this time, we were able by a geophysics device, which was showing me that under this thick layer where there was absolutely nothing, 80 centimeters below was something very strange. We dug there and we discovered intact ceramic of the 4th, 3rd century BCE and large bronze statuette of the god Osiris. And this is absolutely astonishing. It means that on the same site where was this temple was before another temple to the same god Osiris. Osiris was one of the most important gods for the Egyptian, and for the Greek, Osiris was Dionysos. And there was a relation between Osiris and Dionysos, and the wife of Osiris, Isis, was identified by the Greek to Aphrodite. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, and power, which was Venus for the Roman. Thus, Isis, Aphrodite, Venus was the same god. And we are there in a temple to Osiris and to Isis, meaning that in the temple of Dionysos and Aphrodite. This year, we discover a huge quantity of coins from Cleopatra 7, the great Cleopatra, the one of the movie. And whenever in Egypt 2 or 3 coins of Cleopatra are discovered, it's an event. This year, we discover 21 coins of Cleopatra, whether silver or bronze, which is absolutely astonishing. And all those coins dates back from a specific date, 41 BCE. And 41 BCE was the time of the absolute glory of the Queen Cleopatra. And this, we have an importance for this temple. This temple collapsed during an earthquake, and everything was destroyed in a matter of few seconds. This is well illustrated there. You see the skull of a crocodile under a block of construction which slid into the port and killed the crocodile which was close to the sanctuary. Poor crocodile. He didn't expect that. Of course, when you see a picture like that with those big limestone blocks, which looks very well preserved, you have to understand that there was more or less 2 meters of sediment above those elements. The sediment has been taken out, and we can take a picture. We have now the total length of the remain of the temple, 50 meters. We have also the total width of the temple, 15 meters. We found also the columns of the temple. You see the size of a diver compared to the size of the column. They were more than 1 meter of diameter, made of red granite. They were, each of them, 8 meters high. It's massive. And now something is very interesting, is that you have the length, the width of the temple, and you have the column of the temple. Starting from there, you can reconstruct a temple, because there was a very strict standard in the antiquity for building the temples. And those standards are defined and very well described in a book written by Vitruvius in the 1st century BCE in 10 books. And those 10 books has been transcribed and copied and are still available today for the readers. It dates back for more than 2,000 years. And in there is drawings and text how to build a temple. And if you have the length, if you have the width, if you have the column, everything start, you can rebuild your temple. I will show you how. Each column has 105 centimeters of diameter. The length of the column were 7 to 8 times their diameter. And the space between 2 columns is between the axis of 2 columns is 3 times the one of the diameter. That means the size between 2 columns, you put 3 other columns, and you have the space, which is 2 columns, because they are 1.05 meter diameter. We found 64 meters of broken column. It means that as they were 8 meters in length, we have 8 columns on the front, on the portico of this temple. But there is now an ambiguity. Those columns could be in 1 row or in several rows. Thus, first hypothesis, if they were in 1 row, all of them together with a space in between would have put a temple 25 meters wide. Unfortunately, the secondary branch, when it was built, is 20 meters wide. It doesn't match. The second solution, which is described in Vitruvius, is that they were in two rows and for, of course, symmetric reason, 4 on the right, 4 on the left. Thus, from there, we can define the layout of that sanctuary. They were built all the same, all over the antique world. 3 rooms, 1 entrance called the pronaos, the naos, which was the most holy place of the sanctuary, where was the statue of the god, and a room called opistidomos, which was the room where the archives were kept and the treasure of the temple were kept. And of course, it was a very interesting place for us to excavate there. Okay, you have the layout, but how could that temple look like? We have some example, visual example of temple of that time. You see on ceramics here, very well drawn, but even more interesting, we found in the temple during the excavation tokens representing our temple. Thus, it's fantastic. We have the layout and we have a kind of figuration of how they look like with their pediment, curved pediment that you can see also here and here. Thus, we have found the columns. We found broken element of the columns capital made of white marble Corinthian style. We have the length, we have the width, we know the layout. Now we want to have an image of that monument. For that, you have to build the pediment, and you have to draw the pediment. You go to Vitruvius, you have the solution. Everything is there. Up to the slightest detail, everything is detailed in Vitruvius' book. How to draw a pediment, okay, 1 circle like that, 1 circle like that, the center here, you do a circle from here to here, and you have the shape of your pediment exact. You should not do something else, it's against the law. You have to follow the law and the rules. Thus, starting from there, we have a visual of what could the temple look like from the front. Of course, you have 2 columns in a row here, 2 columns in a row, 2 columns in a row, the base here, the pediment with the column capital. There is very little things that you can take out or add to that. This is how the monument looks like, but we have more than that. During our excavation, we gather more information. Here you have the profile of the building with the 2 columns in a row, 4 columns in a row, 4 columns in a row, 50 meters long. This is the altar. We found part of it, but in all temples, there was this type of altar in front of a sanctuary to Isis Osiris. And this is a perspective view of our look of our temple. And all the elements you see there has been partly found underwater, and it has been rebuilt according to Vitruvius. But we have more. During this year excavation, we found a lot of the interior decoration. And it goes very far because we have cornice, but we have also wall plaster here, here, everywhere, there. The whole decor is there. See, for example, even this cornice is broken into 2 parts, but you have the continuation. We could reconstruct, everything is there. Of course, we not lift out of the water all those elements and reconstruct a big puzzle. It doesn't make sense on the scientific point of view, but we have them. And we have even more. We have element of floor with mosaic, black mosaic, white mosaic, different type of marbles, as we know the color of the flooring. We have the different cornice and the wall plaster. But even more, we have the colors, because the fresco of the temple has been broken, but the sediment is still remaining on some fragments. So you have the color. After 2,000 years underwater, you have the color still remaining on the plaster, decorating the interior of the temple. It's so strange. It's the first time this has been discovered underwater. Even on land, it's extremely rare to find antique colors. And here you can see even the start of the landscape of the Nile, etc. And these are very well known, because in Pompeii, which has been destroyed in 79 AD, a temple of that same period has been destroyed 2 centuries after it has been built, and a lot of fresco are still remaining on the walls. And it's called Pompeii first period. Pompeii first period. And luckily enough, we have a relation work with Oxford Center for Maritime Archaeology, and the professor in charge of this is a specialist of the fresco. And when we brought those fresco out of the water, I said, I don't need more, I don't need more. I can tell you, I can paint, I can make a drawing of what was inside of this temple. I know this by heart. How the panel were placed one to each other compared to the statue. It's known. Now we recover also the statue of the temple, and not small statues. They are extremely important. This statue is the oldest statue of a priest holding a vase containing water. And that water is the primordial water of the Nile, and representing the god Osiris. And the top of this vase is the head of the god Osiris. That's the priest. It's very strange, because in a temple of Osiris, you expect to find a statue of Osiris. Makes sense. You have a temple of Isis, you expect a statue of Isis. Here is not. You have the statue of the priest holding the god. And this is something very strange, but we know why. We know why because of that Sphinx here. That Sphinx is the likeness of a pharaoh, very well known, Ptolemies XII. And Ptolemies XII was the father of the great Cleopatra, Cleopatra VII. Thus, this is something very intriguing, but it was known in the history that Ptolemies XII declared himself as the new god Osiris. Thus, this temple was a temple to his own person. You will not put a statue of yourself, but you will put a statue of a priest doing the cult forever, because it's the statue, it will be always there. It's a permanent through time of the cult to the pharaoh. It's a very strange association. Now we have an idea of the inside of that temple, not a very clear idea, but we have more. And this more explains the history and explains everything. In the British Museum is a stele, an inscribed stone, which is lying there since the 19th century in the reserve of the British Museum. And I came across that stele looking at the catalogue. And that stele had been translated for a long time, but was not put in relation with any archaeological element for the very good reason that the discovery that we have done was done after the translation, which has been done early 20th century. And that still says something very interesting. It says that the highest priest of Egypt, called Pasharenta, has been ordered by Pharaoh Ptolemy XII to come to his palace in Alexandria. And the stele says that the Pharaoh and the high priest, after the coronation of the Pharaoh, went sailing to a temple to Isis Osiris. They were in the port, in the royal quarter, and they have to sail to a sanctuary. It means that this sanctuary was on an island, otherwise you will walk to the sanctuary. A sanctuary of Isis Osiris in an island, there is not two, it's ours. And the stele further says that when Pharaoh and the high priest left the temple, in front of all the court assembly, in front of the temple, Pharaoh gave to the high priest a crown of gold and jewel and precious stone, and ordered the priest to institute a cult to his own person as the new Osiris, the new god Osiris. It means that Pharaoh was saying, listen, there, now I am the god, and I want in this place that a cult to my own person be performed forever. And we are in that place. It means that this is why the Sphinx is the likeness of Pharaoh. And of course, Pharaoh was Osiris. You will not put a statue of Osiris. He was Osiris. We will not put a statue of his. Okay, fine. He will put a statue of the priest doing the cult to his own person as Osiris. I told you that there was a temple for the archives and the treasure. Of course, when the temple was destroyed, everything which could have been recuperated has been recuperated, but few items were left inside some crevice, etc., on that spot. And those are part of the treasure. Very important crystal head representing Antony himself, Mark Antony, husband of Cleopatra. Gold coin given by the Emperor Augustus, a statue of the Emperor Tiberius, a silver box with coins, a silver ritual instrument, very precious. Thus, we know now that in the beginning there was a chapel to Osiris. Then Ptolemy XII reshuffled that chapel and instituted a cult to him. But it so happens that during Cleopatra time also was important for this temple because Cleopatra, after the death of her father, took power as pharaoh and declared herself as the new goddess of beauty and love, Isis Aphrodite. And she had the name Cleopatra, the new Aphrodite, Nea Isis, to his own imperial title. And she declared publicly in front, I am not identified to the goddess, I am the goddess. And this is why we have such a big amount of artifacts from Cleopatra time, because we understood something. everything on that area which is pink. You have under the chapel artifact from the 3rd century beginning to a former chapel. Everything on this green area, there is only artifact from the 1st century BC and 1st century AD. There was no former monument. It means that Cleopatra enlarged the temple and put a portico with 8 gigantic granite columns in front of this and made a lot of donation. Of course, why? Because this was a temple to the cult, to his own person as the new Isis. Everything which is Osiris is Isis. Isis being the wife and the sister of Osiris. It's combined. Just now, we have the whole story of this temple. A small chapel in the 3rd century, renovated by Ptolemies XII with donation, enlarged considerably by Cleopatra VII. And you expect that the newcomers, Augustus, after the Cleopatra committed suicide, took over Egypt as a Roman colony, and he was against the cult of Isis. You expected that Augustus would have destroyed this temple? No, because Cleopatra, being Isis, was very much loved by all the clergy, all the priests of Egypt. And to conquer Egypt, you have to have the priests with you. So he decided not to commit this terrible fault to destroy the temple of Cleopatra, but he converted it to a temple of the goddess Isis, who will protect the fleets, which every year we bring to Rome the grain, the cereal from Egypt and feeding Rome. And like this, everybody was happy until an earthquake destroys that temple, and we can say the exact date, 55. After 55, nothing, no coins, no ceramic, everything stopped in 55. And this is, inside the temple, we found this Isis called Eproia, this Isis protecting the Roman fleet for centuries, normally for centuries, but it stopped quite fast there. But we have more. We have the surrounding of the temple with bays of columns. Here, one of the bays fell into the port with a column and a statue. Thus, we can more or less say that we found there, it was a large statue, 2 meters high, marble of a Ptolemy king. And we know now how was the surrounding of this temple, seen from behind, seen from the side. And now we have a vision of this temple, I hope the vision, which is a vision of the royal island. The platform with 12 statues. A colonnade going to the palace there with a temple to Isis. The landing stage that we discovered there. The 8 columns, 2 rows. And we see the 2 sphinxes and the statue of the cult is the Pompeian first style decor of that temple. And this was one of the most important monuments for the last of the pharaohs of Egypt, Cleopatra being the last pharaoh of Egypt. She committed suicide in 31. This is our support vessel for the team, and picture, alloyed picture for the work. But when we took that picture, everybody thought to something else. That the picture should have been taken like that, but more like that. Because everybody was thinking about the temple of Cleopatra on the rural island of Antirhodos. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank, for this really outstanding insight in the long-term work on this site. What he did not mention is, when did you find the two sphinxes and the priest?
Statue of the priest of the sphinxes, 1996. When we found this, we said, oh, okay, good. And we started excavating under, and under there were slabs. But we stopped. We thought they were slabs. They were not slabs. They were blocks which had been eroded and flat like slabs, and under there was a temple. And under this was a layer without anything, and under this was another temple of the 3rd century BC.
I mean, this shows how much this entire work over the 30 years is like a puzzle. No, you find individual things somewhere, you don't know where they belong, and then suddenly the picture gets together.
It's exactly like that. It's a puzzle. At the beginning, you even wonder, is this belong to this site? We don't. And then after, yes, of course, it it feels this or etc. But it's a puzzle underwater there, but also a puzzle around the world, because still in the British Museum, we give you part of the history of that temple, etc. It's a big puzzle, and the documentation-wise and also archaeologically-wise.
And there is good news, because you told us this morning that you're going to publish this museum.
Yes, because I didn't know what we would have we find this year. Thus, I started a book years ago, and I had just added what we found this year, and the book will be published in April next in Oxford, in the center supported by the ET Foundation, Oxford Center for Maritime Archaeology. We created with Oxford University in 2003. It's a long time already.
We're very much looking forward to learn more about it. Any questions from your side? Please.
They are not very deep underwater. We are there 7 meters deep, plus 1.8 meters of sediment. Okay, so it's not very, but the excavation is quite difficult because of the visibility, and it's hard work because you have a site more than 50 meters long, because with slide, etc., it's 60 meters long by more or less 45 meters wide. It's a huge work. And this is something also, why such an excavation had never been performed before? Because it goes through decade. And if you don't have a support through decade, okay, you would, for 2 years of support, you would have found nice statue. Okay, nice statue. And then no more.
But not the entire history around it or behind it.
History which brings a lot to the history of Egypt.
Yeah. There was a question back there. Yes, please.
For the monetary, you say coins perspective, or? As the most valuable fact, it's very difficult to say. The statue of the priest holding Osiris is unique as such. It changed totally because there is some copy of this cult of the priest holding the Osiris, which has been done in Italy, you know, and they date from the statue discovered date back from the 2nd and 3rd century AD. And it was thought that the cult started in the 2nd century AD. Not at all. We can prove that this cult started in the 1st century BC, early 1st century BCE. That's, I would say, the statue is something, first, it's a beautiful statue. Second, it's unique in the world. It's a museum piece, you know, any museum in the world would love to have such a piece. And the second thing?
The second was from your personal point of view. For you personally, what is
the history of the temple? The history of the temple that we could prove and write.
More questions? There is one.
There is several type of changes. Where you excavate underwater, the visibility is extremely poor, 50 centimeter at the best, because you see some underwater picture, but those pictures are taken. The photographer is waiting weeks sometimes to take the photographer. Thus, yes, the second is the quantity of the remains. The quantity of the remains, and also the understanding, because you just, at the beginning, don't understand. You find statue and pavement under. Okay, fine, statue there. No, it's not pavement. There are blocks which has been totally eroded and flat like this, like pavement, beautifully done. No, but under there is more blocks. And then you have a layer without anything. You have to stop because the cone of excavation is so vast that you are losing a lot of time. No, you go down and you have another temple under. It's a different type of changes. What we found are some samples, I would say. I would expect much more and more important thing. Because that temple was linked to the history of Egypt. Very closely linked to the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty, because it is mentioned during the death of Cleopatra. So it can lead to something very important.
Frank, you mentioned it yourself before that some parts of, due to your discovery, some parts of the history of the late, especially the late period of the pharaonic reign, had to be rewritten or will have to be rewritten.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially the last days, if not hours, of the Ptolemaic dynasty, because some texts refer to a temple of Isis which had never been found before on land, and most probably apply to this monument.
So we can look forward what else is coming up. Any more questions? Yes.
Well, this is statutory in Egypt. The Ministry of Antiquity of Egypt gave us the permit, and there are exclusive permit rights. Your team is the only team allowed, or only person allowed to study the artifact and to excavate there and to publish them. But you have 5 years to publish the artifact. After 5 years, anybody in the world could study the artifact in your place.
There was a question.
And the Egyptians are extremely strict for that, and they respect that rule perfectly. Because when we are doing excavation, we have our team and we have the Egyptian team of the Ministry of Antiquity together with us. It's a joint team. We have 12 archaeologists and they have 8 archaeologists, and we are working together.
Please.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Before bringing something out of the water, we agree with the Egyptian team whether this is worth to be documented only underwater or worse, to be brought because it brings something important and we have to keep it as with us, or because it's an important statue or a valuable artifact, of course. And a few years ago, thanks to the ET Foundation, we built a beautiful storeroom for excavation, which is considered as the nicest of all team in Egypt, in the Maritime Museum of Alexandria. And we have our own team of restoration and preservation.
You had a question?
Totally. Yeah, the works changed tremendously because at the beginning we were a little bit blind, I would say. But now we have prior knowledge thanks to geophysics equipment that we are, they are prototype that we are developing with Dresden University. And we use them in those sites. And during COVID time, I had some time to develop some algorithms for the interpretation of the data. Thus, now it's quite powerful, but I'm sure it could be tremendously improved now by artificial intelligence because, of course, I developed this with my own thing, and there is much more powerful tools that could be applied to studies and interpreted the billions of data of sub-bottom profiler, parametric sub-bottom profilers that we are developing there.
More questions? Yes.
Katin, yeah. Katin, she's an archaeologist looking for the tomb of Cleopatra in the site of Taposiris Magna, 60 kilometers from Alexandria on a temple to Osiris. So it's a temple to Osiris. Well, we don't, each team is separate. Today, Katin, she's working with Zaya Was, a well-known archaeologist who was General Secretary of Antiquity of Egypt. And they said, no, most probably the tomb is not where we are looking for years, but, you know, who knows? It could be, whatever.
So there is...
It's true that the presence of Cleopatra is huge on this underwater site. But it doesn't prove anything for the time being, of course.
Time for one more question. So if not, then...
That is a dessert. This is the main question.
The dessert, yeah. Franck, thank you so much. It's really every year it's an event to have you here, and it's worth organizing a lunch and learn. I would like to thank my colleague Aaron, who really did it last minute. Thank you so much for making it happen also with the communication team. And I can only invite you. We heard today that there are new films coming up in the near future, also about the Iseum. Go on out, go on ZDF, go on, watch out for these videos because they're really worthwhile and they give you such a holistic picture of the work of Franck, which is going on for the next 300 years, you say?
I have 300 if possible. 300. I have a message also to pass to you from all the team, because we are up to 52% this year, we're 52, is a big thanks to the ET Group and the ET Foundation, because it's a unique case of such long-term support, which can achieve things which has never been achieved because this is a unique case.
We are extremely proud to be the partner of such a unique project, but mainly also of such a unique personality. Thank you so much, Franck, and bravo. So well done.